This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. We're here for the financial plan meeting. We'll do quick introductions and then we will call the meeting to order. With us, we have Councillor Ron Mamchuk. Good evening. We have Councillor Curtis Clayton. Good evening, everyone. Councillor Jeanine Boulanger.
Hello, everybody.
We have our CEO, we have Councillor Shane Pelletier.
Evening.
With us online, we have our CAO, Mitch Duval.
Evening.
And our new CFO, who I'm going to get the name wrong, so I'm going to get him to introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mohammed Zaman.
Zamar?
Yeah.
Zaman. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Without further ado, again, this is going to be more of a presentation style, but I will call the meeting to order. We're going to do this just by a show of hands for tonight's purpose. I'll call for the question. Open hearing. Call for the question. All those in favor? That's carried. I didn't see Shane's hand. 5-0. Thank you. And that meeting opens at 7:02 p.m.
All right. If the public and the audience will be patient with me, I will try to fire up my screen. And we should be good. Thumbs up, Councillor Pelletier? Awesome. All right. So welcome, everybody. Council members have introduced themselves. Our new CFO is here present as well. We have one right there in the boardroom here. And so far, nobody else online, but we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you for taking time out of your busy lives to come forward to our public presentation for tonight. No need to take too many notes. The presentation will be made available on our website as well as this presentation as we go ahead here. So the agenda is basically broken down into 5 components, and if you've been here before, it's the same old song and dance where we're going to go through the 5 processes. As we move forward, each of the processes will be highlighted in red, so you'll know where we are in the agenda as we go. So the objectives of the financial plan is basically to provide an overview for ratepayers and council as far as operating and capital. The purpose is also to gather information, ask questions, and provide feedback on those who are participating. Again, the presentation, the financial plan, the bylaw will all be made available, or some of it is available already. The presentation that I'm making right now will be available early tomorrow once we get the download from GoToMeetings. The process itself is a 7-step process. We start from doing preliminary budgets with the departments using 2021 actual numbers, then moving to making adjustments by the senior team, having a session with council whereby we slam numbers around for about 2-3 hours, get cross-eyed and come back to it again, take a look at it, draw up a revised bylaw, budget, prepare the financial plan, and basically have a public hearing, which is step 6, and this is where we are tonight. Depending on the outcome of the public hearing, we will then proceed with bylaw adaptation. Before moving forward, we need to understand a little bit how the mill rate, the assessment, taxation all works together. So assessment is basically the value of all the properties in the Armor Reach-Up. In order to determine the mill rate, we need to look at all the dollars that we're going to be spending, look at all the reserve transfers we're doing, and all other revenues that we may have to come up with a net dollars to be raised by taxation. You take that portion of the dollars, you divide it by portion value assessment of the municipality, and you come up with a mill rate. Portion value of municipal assessment is basically taking a portion of the assessment of either your residential property agricultural property, commercial property, or any other property you may have. For residential, we take 45% of that value. For agricultural, we take 26% of that value. And for commercial, we take 65% of that value. 2022 assessments. Basically, reassessments are done every 2 years, but we were supposed to have one in 2022, but it got pushed back to 2023 because of something called COVID. You may have heard of it. So as a result of that, we are still moving forward with not old assessments, but just not as accurate as it could be. So the portion assessment for 2022 went up 3.5%, up to 585 million. So we have a total disaster, i.e. flood, and would wipe out all the buildings and everything we would have in Reachot. We would be looking at $585 million of portion assessment to replace. The plan, the budget is based on these numbers, on the $585 million. For the 2023 assessment, you should all have received a notice by now from the assessment branch regarding your new value moving forward for 2023. On behalf of the provincial departments, I invite you to an open house that they will be having on May 24th. That is open for everybody to know more about their assessment value, how they came up with it, and if you're not happy with the decision of the province or how they came up with that value, then there's what is called the Board of Revision, and they meet at the end of October, middle of October, and it's basically like a mini court whereby the province will present their case, you present your case as far as the values go, and the board will make a decision from there. This slide just goes to show you how the assessment has increased over the past 8 years. There have been some steady growth in the RM of Reachot due to construction, new builds, et cetera, et cetera. You will note that 2016, it went up 22.5%, mostly because of a reassessment year. 2020 at 10%, again, another reassessment year. But the other years all seem to point out between a 3 to 5% increase throughout. So for 2022, as I said, we're at 585 million. This slide for assessment brings us or shows us the values from 2021 to 2022. So for residential, it went up 5% and not as much for all the others. You will also note that the split for the assessment is very heavily based on residential properties. Residential properties account for 2/3 of the value in the RM of Reachot. Oh, what did I do? That's readable. Okay, we'll keep going. Sorry about that, folks. So your tax mill rates or your tax bill is basically comprised of 3 components. You have the school division, and in Reachot, I think the municipality split up amongst 5 school divisions. There's the province with the educational support levy, and that is only applicable to commercial properties. Farmland and residential do not pay for education support levy. And of course, the municipal levy, which are determined by council members. Quickly, just to go through your tax bill if you haven't taken a look at it. The top portion basically tells you what your property is assessed at via land and buildings, and also what portion it is being used at for taxation purposes. So for this example, a residential property is worth $425,000. However, for taxation purposes, we're only going to be taking $191,000 of that value. The middle part is basically the guts of the tax bill. It basically tells you where your mill rates are and your assessment. So you take that 191 and you multiply it by the general mill rate. Any bylaws or special levies are added thereafter, coming up with municipal net taxes, and then your school division taxes are after that. And at the end is basically a summary of your school taxes and your balance and when they are due by. And this is an old example because they will not be due October 31st, 2020, but October 31st, 2021. 2022. Thank you. You guys picked it up. Here's a slide regarding the school division requirements. These are the mill rates comparative, or the dollars that they are being raised from 21 to 22. And as you go through those numbers, there's not much of an increase overall to the school requisitions. Again, these are dollars that the municipalities collect and remit back to the schools and to the province. This slide basically tells us how many dollars we're collecting overall. We're going to be collecting 14 million, but 8.7 million of that is related to the schools. I've always used the rule of thumb, the 60-40, and basically that's what it is. 61% is school related, 39% is municipal related. So here we have basically how we come to the mill rate. In 2021, we had a mill rate of 7.95. It was broken down for at-large, municipal affairs, fire replacement reserve, machinery replacement reserve, and the borrowing for the Saint-Agathe Fire Hall. All of those mill rates add up to 7.95. For 2022, it is proposed that the same mill rate is maintained at 7.95. Just given the shift of the assessment, people who haven't seen an increase on their assessment will likely be paying a little bit lower in taxes. Operating budget revenue. As we go through and we collect all these sums, we are to collect the 14 million, and this is how we're going to be collecting it. We're going to collect 4.4 via paying for projects via transfer of reserves. Municipal taxes and grants in lieu that we're going to collect from the ratepayers are going to be 5.5, and other revenue, which is about 7.4 million, and we'll talk about those on the next slide. But that is how the revenue side of things are broken down. So the 7.4 is broken down into these categories. Taxes added basically is additional assessment. So as there's new builds in the municipality, this is where people are paying additional taxes for their builds, for improvements, for whatever the case may be. Permits, licensing, and fines, 211,000. Basically, that boils down to all the building permits that are issued for construction. Sales of services, 23%, a little bit misleading because the 1.76 is mostly due to GFL returns via our landfill. That money is then thrown into the general reserve fund for future projects and infrastructure improvements. Sales of goods, basically water services, that's where that comes in at $668,000. Investments and returns and penalties, people who don't pay on time, $184,000. Development fees, again, that is a little bit misleading. We're at $1.5 million there. Those are basically in and outs. What we collect from the developers are then thrown into the appropriate reserves, whether it be capital, recreation, water services. That basically all gets thrown back into reserves for future construction. Grants and projects, basically we have good staff at the RM that apply for good funding opportunities and are able to collect a lot of grant applications throughout the process, so that is at 2.5 million. And then there's always a catch-all for miscellaneous revenues, totaling $7.4 million. This slide basically gives us an indication as to what our opening balances are for all our reserves, not utility reserves. That will be on the next slide. So as of December 31st, 2021, we have about $7.3 million in the bank in reserves. With the forecasted revenues that I've just talked about, that should go up 3.8 million. So we should have, if we don't do any projects whatsoever, that should close at 11.1. But of course, we will be using some of those dollars to do some various projects. Utilities, again, sitting as a combined 1.2. If the development fees come in the way they are anticipated, then we'll raise another $1 million in capital fees, and therefore the adjusted balance will bring us close to 2.3 million. We'll back up. Operating budget and expenses. This slide shows us basically a quick comparison as to all the departments and spending per department for the given year. So ranging anywhere from the low end at $5,000 for environmental development, all the way up to 2.2 for transportation. Fiscal and transfer to reserves, again, are a little bit misleading, given if on the amount of projects that we may have, the reserve transfer would reflect those projects being done, and also capital fees being collected. Just to break it down a little bit more, category by category, general government, we're looking at spending 1.4 million. Last year was 1.41, so slightly down. Not much change there, and that's to cover basically council indemnities, the operations of the office, legal, audit, assessment, elections, conferences, et cetera, et cetera. Protected services at 784, we were at 777 before, so a slight increase, not much change there again, related to the fire department, emergency measures, 911, building inspections, wildlife enforcement, control, animal control, and flood. Flood, as you know, there's a lot of water out there. We're going to have quite a bit of damage on, contrary to what our mayor said on the CTV interview. I think it's going to be a lot more than $200,000 or $300,000. It might be about $1.5 million in damages, but that's okay. We'll let them off. Let them off the hook for the time being. However, the province has already declared it to be a big program, so that's good news. Basically, the municipality is only going to absorb $55,000 in total costs if all our repairs are approved by the province. Transportation, 2.2 million from 2.1 million, basically a jump of about 143,000. That covers wages, equipment, road repairs, maintenance, sidewalks, boulevards, snow and ice removal, street lighting. The biggest one there is fuel. As we all know, the price of fuel has escalated, so we've increased our budget by 96,000 just for that one category. So that we can ensure that the work gets done. Environmental health, 1.1 versus 1.1, so almost no change, very minimal. That is for your garbage and recycling collection, which includes your curbside bulk waste. And I believe there's not only October 2nd, but there's a pickup in June. And sorry, I don't have those dates available, but I believe the first Saturday in June would also be your bulk collection. Yard waste to be done on a bi-weekly basis, Dutch Elm program, and the municipal water system is all included in that 1.16. Public health, environment development, 16,000, down from 64,000. The big decrease there is that we had to put money aside last year for the McDonald Reshot development plan. That was done and moved on. We still have to give it third reading, I believe, but that will be forthcoming. The other item is $20,000 for the Reshot cache study. That is still ongoing, and I didn't make a mistake in not putting any dollars here. We should have a few dollars to be putting in here as well for that project. So we'll try to skimp it off Public Works or somewhere else in the budget. Just don't tell Mike. Economic development, 332 from 330. Again, very minimal increase. As you can tell, destruction of pest, mosquito control, West Nile, the weed district. We belong to two watersheds, the St. Rat Roseau, the LaSalle Red Boyne, as well as regional economic development. Recreation, just hitting the $1 million mark now, from the $906,000 in 2021. This is regarding staffing for the municipal office for recreation, operation grants for community and halls, as well as the skating rinks, arenas, playgrounds, libraries, and cultural events. The increases there, we could attribute to maybe $35,000 in the operating grant and facilities, ensuring that our facilities are well maintained and kept up to date by doing some preventative maintenance, etc. Insurance has gone up about 10%, so that is kind of split across the board all over. As well as Green Team, looking at getting 3 Green Team members for $19,000. That, of course, is offset by the funding we would get from the province, so there's some cost savings there. Fiscal services and reserve transfers. Those two categories are hard to compare from year to year. It all depends on the projects you're going to be doing in the year. So I did not provide any comparatives from 2021. But for 2022, we're looking at $6.64 million and reserve transfers in $3.8 million. Fiscal services covers also tax discounts that council may give for early payment, debenture debt, which are projects that have been paid for in the past and carried out for many, many years, capital municipal projects, capital utility projects, as well as transfers being done to the machinery and fire department reserve. Speaking of debentures, I believe the municipality is in a very good financial position regarding debentures. We have 2 that are going to be coming off the books this year once payment is done. That would be for the Ile des Chênes and the St. Adolphe utilities. So that's very good. The next 2 are basically only one parcel, one ratepayer, which is the St. Adolphe Ring Dyke expansion. All the lands non-developed by the developer is paying for that Ring Dyke expansion. So it's not affecting individual ratepayers. The only 2 left on the books, really, therefore, moving ahead would be the Ile des Chênes, the TransCanada Energy project. That expires in 2032. As well as the St. Agathe Fire Hall expiring in 2038, which I believe both were 20-year long-term debentures. Last but not least, the capital budget with their funding sources. Again, we'll go through them category by category. So under general government, we've got about $1.64 million. How we break that down is we've started a project in St. Agathe with 1 security camera, and now we're going to try to expand that to another community in the community of Ile des Chênes. If everything goes well, we should be able to put up a couple cameras at strategic locations for $30,000. The civic site and the municipal office renovation expansion are kind of tied together projects, for lack of better words. As I dive through the presentation, you'll see why. It's almost impossible to do one without the other, so those are basically complementary to each other moving forward. Both of these projects are proposed to be funded by the General Reserve. The Civic site at $613,900. There's also a big chunk of federal grant that was received for this. Unfortunately, I can't tell you the name of the grant because an announcement has not been made yet. But we're guaranteed the funding, for lack of better words. Just can't say where it's from. Don't want to blow the whistle and take credit for their efforts. The municipal office renovation and expansion, I'm putting $1 million for this year and $1.5 million in 2023. Pending timing of construction tenders, et cetera, we may not spend the $1 million this year, but if not, we will definitely continue the project and expend the money in 2023 for a total of $2.5 million. So regarding the Civic site and our office expansion, this is the site that we currently see today. We have the daycare to the northern part of the picture with a big sand parking area in the middle with the office and fire hall at the bottom south end. Back in 1991, when this building was first thought of, the staff at the time was located in the adjacent building, in the little white building right across from here. So in 1991, an expansion or a new building was thought to be done, wearing out the other location. As you see on this diagram, and I'll point it out for those that are in the audience, there was a thought of an expansion already just kind of figured way back then to the north and west, east side of the building. So there was some thought, but I guess back in 1981, it was not decided to move with the full expansion, so they kept with the solid gray area. Of course, things have changed over the years. This is from the Manitoba Historical Society as far as population goes. So if you look at 1981, when this building was first built, we had a population of about 4262. 40 years later, we are now at not what they had estimated, but at 7469, which is the new census in 2021. So not quite doubling over 40 years, but an increase of about 75%. Those trends, I believe, are going to continue. They're definitely not going to go down, they're going to go up. As there's more development in the municipality, the population can only go up as well. This slide kind of gives you an indication as to the development going on, what's coming up, what's out there. St. Adolphe has Huron Creek being developed. There's potential on Main Street as well. Grand Point with Grand Point Meadows and the Grand, both developers moving ahead quite promising there. Ile des Chênes as well. Hopefully another development at the south end of Ile des Chênes should follow. Saint-Agathe as well. The Beaudries want to resurrect that file again, so there's another 52 lots. So as you can tell, there's going to be quite a bit of residential increase. 2016, we were at 6679. 2021, somebody was hopeful in 8,000, but we're at 7469, and it just goes on and on from there. So what does that mean as far as an office goes? Well, we've got to look at a 5-year kind of personal plan changes going on. Successful succession planning is important. Yours truly, the CEO, is creeping up there in age and experience and getting to a point of possible retirement. We also have a building inspector who's getting there as well, facilities director and public works manager. So those are positions that are going to have to be looked at as well. As the population increases, I think we also have to look at incremental positions that may come into play as well. Communications officer, I know that is a very high priority for council members to have that position in place. As there's more development, there's more pocket parks, there's more items to take care of. Restructuring of those parks or something may be something to consider. A parks manager. Recreation program coordinator, maybe having more than one. Infrastructure and utilities increasing, more to take care of. Asset management, very key item moving in the future. Looking at all our assets, what do we need to do to maintain them, to keep them, and expect to have dollars in place for whenever the need arises. Permits and inspection clerks, we're very busy as far as planning goes with building inspections, permits coming in, conditional uses, variations, et cetera. It just seems more and more daunting, and as the population increases, you're just going to see more and more of these things. Finance and payroll, well, right now we've got a new CFO in place. However, with an increase in population, increase in departments, there's more bills, et cetera, to pay. So an additional person to enter those bills, keep track, assist the CFO may be required in the future. So we're looking anywhere between 2 to 5 to 8 as well for public works staff. The more roads you have, the more equipment you'll need, the more bodies you'll need to be able to maintain those. And this is nothing new, folks. We've seen other municipalities in the capital region who have seen the growth, who are going through the same or have gone through the same processes that Reachot is experiencing. Taché, Niverville, Rocroi, Hanover, Springfield. Even the RMM McDonald is in the process of looking at a new municipal office, and I believe theirs is going to be an expansion / rental as well. The municipality of Hanover. Just recently, a subcommittee, we went for a tour, because how are we supposed to construct a municipal building when we have no clue what we're looking for and what are the likes, what are the dislikes, what works, what doesn't. So we also went to see the RM of St. Anne's and the town of St. Anne's, two different municipalities, but both having fairly new office buildings. The RM of St. Anne's built 5 years ago. Guess what? It's too small already. They did not forecast or take development growth into consideration, and now they are strapped for accommodations in their office. I'm no expert when it comes to construction of buildings, homes, roads, et cetera, so we had a firm come out and do what's called an opinion of probable cost. Fancy term for an estimate. So we currently have about 4,000 square feet. We would like to double that and add another 4,000 square feet. So based on a value given in October of 2021, we come up with a total of just over 2.5 million. A couple months ago, I went to council and it says, well, there's a few different ways that you could pay this. You could borrow the full 2.5 million, you could borrow half, use half on the reserve, or you could just go straight to the reserve. Having discussed the various options, council would like to proceed with the project going straight from full reserve transfers to pay for this expense. If we look at the average contribution that we've done over the past 5 years to the general reserve of $880,000. And I'll warn the public right now that is on the low side. Right now we're looking at 1.5, maybe 1.9 being contributed this year. But based on 880, it would take about 3.5 years to replenish the general reserve back to where we are. And even into taking account lost interest on those dollars that we pulled away, that would result in about $100,000 based on a very minimal rate of return of 1.125. So total cost would not be 2.5. You take into account the interest we're losing. It would also be 2.6, 2.7 million based on that. Again, this is where we are at today. I hate showing the next few slides just because they are pictures of concept drawings, and nothing worse than showing the concept drawing because people will say, well, this is where it was supposed to be, et cetera, et cetera. So keep in mind, these are conceptual drawings, not actual drawings, but a starting point for people to start contemplating. So, the area in gray is the old office. The yellow would be the expansion. And then there would be some reconstruction to be done on the inside where the gray is. And again, these are conceptual drawings. We are in the council room right now. What may not be the council room in the future. It all depends what the new architects will come up with our design, right? However, I do want to include in the discussion a big reason why council is in favor of this expansion is due to incubation space within the municipal office, whether it be 2 offices or 3 offices of about 750 to 800 square feet each. The reason is to be able to start a small business off at low rental expense rent and being able to provide a space for them to get a good foot off the ground. It's not meant for a 5-year, 10-year development. It's meant more for a 5-year or less. Start up your business, you're successful, move on out, find a space, and move forward in life. It's almost like sending your kids off to college and then bye-bye. So that is one of the main reasons why council is in support of the project. The other project, like I said, that needs to be taken into consideration hand in hand is the civic site development. And again, conceptual drawings only. It is to beautify the main core of the RM office, not vacant building, but the daycare in town, having it as a focal point, a get-together site for the community, taking into account the office expansion, taking into account the market that we will likely be drawing as a result of beautifying the space, as well as taking into consideration the drop-off areas for the daycare. Moving on, regarding protective services, this is basically our fire department, a tanker, whereby we have received $310,000 for grant money, as well as part of the fire department reserve will pay for the remainder balance, tanker worth of $400,000. The other ask from the fire chief is the tandem axle trailer and a UTV Ranger for the purpose of fighting wildland fires, especially in the springtime. Things are dry, not necessarily this year, but most years they are dry, therefore better fighting equipment to be able to get out there and knock the fire down. Transportation budget, just over 1.4 million of purchases. So as far as equipment goes, 359,278 as a result of a loader, 26,000 for a zero-turn mower, and 40,000 for a Schulte mower. I believe those are one mower. Could be two mowers, I think it's one mower, as well as the snow blower. Most of these funds are either from the general reserve or the machinery reserve. Capital projects, as far as transportation goes, these are the roads and streets and sidewalks, so totaling 1.1. The PR 200 sidewalk and LDS in St. Adolphe. All these projects that I'm going to mention are going to be withdrawn from the gas tax reserve. That is the purpose of those reserves, to be used for those types of infrastructure. In Grand Point, Dymar reconstruction, hard servicing. Again, in Grand Point, Beauchemin reconstruction and hard servicing. In St. Adolphe, Legacy Drive and Bay North, LDS in St. Adolphe. Pembina Trails Pathway and LDS in St. Gap, and Humane Sidewalk reconstruction in Ile des Chiens. As far as recreation, we have the Grand Point Community Clubhouse, Pedal Park, TC Energy Park Study, the Senegat Boat Launch, and the Senegat Dock. The clubhouse, boat launch, and dock were all projects that were started in 2021 but not completed, so they'll be completed in 2022, and all those costs will be closed off in 2022. Environmental health / reach out water services. It's very important that as we have continued growth in the municipality, that we ensure that we have proper sewage and water capacities for the growth, and ensuring these for the future. So the Reach Out Well study, Randolph Road well study, the treatment facility distribution piping, a pickup for the public works manager or / Reach Out Well services people, as well as the treatment facility signage. We have a beautiful water plant out in St. Gap that is the heart and soul of our water system, but nobody knows where it is because there's lack of signage. So we would ensure that we have proper signage at the site. All these are accessible, funded-wise via grant or Reach Out Water Reserve. The Reach Out Water Reserve increases due to capital fees being paid by developers for future growth. This is where the money is reinvested into the infrastructure. The grant is from Manitoba Water Services Board. They usually always match 50-50 as to what the municipalities would put in. Small rural water utility project, and that's regarding the lagoon crossing and sewer truck dump pad for the St. Adolphe Lagoon. This is in order to accommodate those that don't have sewer hookups directly to our system for the rural folks. As far as the utilities go, there's still a little bit of work left in the Force Main twinning project from 2021. Some restoration works to be done, again, via grant money and their utility to cover those expenses, as well as secondary lagoon repairs. We've got funding from Water Services and the difference to be taken from the capital reserve. 500,000, but we're hoping that our public works people could do it for maybe cheaper than 500,000. Ile des Chiens utility, again, lagoon expansion and decommissioning, moving the northern cell down to the southern side of things, all on the same side. We have the land already purchased, so we'll put it to good use. There again, we have grants from Water Services and the Ildishing Water and Sewer Reserve to cover the difference. The Main Street sewer repairs, that has been on the books for a little while. If ever we could come to an agreement with Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure, they keep changing names. If they ever come forward with a proposal to redo the Main Street in Ildishing, we will also be tackling the sewer repairs while construction is in progress. So just to give you an idea as to where the funds are all heading, basically the building project is important. We're at 42%, 11% for equipment. Roads and pathways, both each respectively at 10%. And that basically accounts for 3/4 of the capital projects being proposed. At the beginning, I showed you the balances where we were with the expectations of how many dollars were going to be thrown in there. So the new adjusted balance, if we get all the funds transferred over, is 11 million. Take out all the money that I said for the project, totaling 4.6 million, should result in $6.5 million still left in reserves at the end of 2022, and that is slightly down from the 7.3 million where we were in December 31 of 2021. This one is very short and simple regarding the utilities and their reserve balances accordingly. And given on the projects that we have, we'd be looking at 2.3 million at the start, spend 1 million, and we would be at 1.3 million after the close. Before I move on to this slide, for the utilities, we still have a pending public utility board rate study that has not, I haven't heard anything from those folks, and I'm not taking into account in this budget any differences or how can I say, I'm not making any provisions as far as the rates being accepted. People will still see their $70 sewage fee for St. Adolphe and Ildishing on their tax bill. If ever the PUB does move ahead and proceed with the approval of the proposal rates, then we should only be charging the $35 for the first 6 months, and then the new rates moving forward. So therefore, next year, if that does happen, we will have to credit everybody who paid the $70 with a $35 credit, just to make things work. Pretty much that is it. The financial plan will be available on our website. Again, a reminder that property taxes are due on Monday, October 31st. The Board of Revision will be held on October 12th. The open house for the assessment is on May 24th. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time, and I'm welcome to ask any questions as you see fit.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll start with the public. Mr. Doran, I know you have some questions. If you want to sit there, you're more than welcome to just ask from that point. That's fine.
First of all, I want to say it's a great presentation. For myself, because I need to be able to understand it. Somebody who's not in business can also understand it if you want to take some time. I want to congratulate whoever put it all together. It's a great presentation and explains a lot.
Thank you.
Now, obviously, a budget is from a business perspective, right? You're talking money and everything else. And I can understand that. But being a citizen, I would like to say a couple of things regarding, and ask a question regarding people look at their tax bill, and the question they have is, what are my new taxes going to be? All this may be interesting to some people, but to a lot of people it's not interesting. The only thing they're interested in are my taxes going up. So the question I have, and I understand mill rates and all this other stuff, so the answer would be in percentage. So what percentage increase can a homeowner expect over last year as a percentage?
The mill rate for 2021 was 7.95. The proposed mill rate for 2022 is 7.95. So if there's no shift in your assessment, which there should not be, you should be paying the same amount of taxes as last year. The only difference, and I do put a little asterisk on here, is if you're paying a local improvement or special services such as garbage and recycling, you will likely see an increase because of those two items I've just mentioned. Otherwise, regarding the general operation of the RM, no change, and all of the projects that were listed is from reserves.
Now, as a business part of the word from reserves, it doesn't matter where the money comes from. Whether it's sitting in a reserve or not sitting in a reserve, sitting over here, we're still spending the money, right? So the idea is of coming from a reserve, and I'll give you an example. If we take the amount of money we're spending, and I'm not the easiest one, with a very big project there. My calculation would be the average homeowner, okay, in Reshow, we get back about almost $300 in taxes. Okay, $300. If the money from the reserve was meant to reduce the taxes. Considering all the other things that are happening in the world, I mean, going to work, we're communities that drive to work, and the gasoline has gone up so high, and all the other costs. Are we going to say, well, so what, everything goes up? Is there anything we can do to help them out? And one of them would be, what can we do to reduce their taxes? That's the only thing that a municipality can do to help them out, is reduce their property taxes. So we do have choices here. We can spend the money renovating, we can spend the money on this project, or we can spend the money on that project. And I understand the business reasons, but I also, as a homeowner, think of the people who are going to have taxes that could be reduced. So we could be giving them money under the reserves, or we could be spending the money on the reserves. Where the reserve money comes from makes no difference. If a multi-billionaire walked in here and gave us $2 million, right, we would have it. So it really doesn't matter. What matters is we decide how to spend it. Do we spend it for the best thing for the community, best thing for all the people here? If the decision of the council is such that spending that money on renovation or spending that money on some of the other things we're doing, then that's the answer, okay? So when you guys consider what you're doing here, you have an opportunity. It's not that you can't do anything to help the people because of all the inflation. You do have an opportunity. You can take it or not take it. It's entirely your decision. The homeowners have no say in it. You guys here are the answers. So I'm asking you to consider whatever the expenditures are, right? Whether it comes from reserve, whether it comes from the tax people. Is that the right thing to do in this particular period of time? 5 years ago, wouldn't matter. Everybody's costs wouldn't have gone up like they're going up now. I mean, every time you turn around, the costs are going up, and there's nothing the homeowner can do about it. In this particular case, we can do something. Okay? So all I'm asking you is, when you look at the business side, you also look at the homeowner side. There are people who can afford whatever that $300 are. There's other people who can't. $300 a lot of money to them. Other people, it's not. I'm just asking you to consider, as as long as we have, food banks, that means there's some people here that need money. So all I'm asking is that you start really look at it. As far as all the expenditures, what to do with the, stuff we're buying for the, municipality, for grass cutters and everything else, all I'm asking you is that have a look about the fact, can we find something that uses electrical, is better for the environment? Some of these machines will last 20 years, so they're meant to burn fuel for 20 years. Maybe we would look at something that may cost us a little bit more, but which would be something that uses less fuel. Right? Help the environment, because we all live here. But again, just to finish, it's not me to decide. My thoughts of coming here tonight was just to put some thoughts in everybody's head, to look at it both from a fiscal side of it and a personal side of it. So, and as far as the renovation and everything, I hope that amount of money, which is, I think 42% of your thing there, that you will have a general meeting not here, specifically on that subject. Have a meeting at the arena, okay? People won't have to wear masks anymore, they'll show up. And specifically to decide, what does the populace think of it, okay? I'm the only one here. How many people are up on the TV screen?
Still three.
Hey?
Still three.
Still three. So we've got 7,963 people that I think it's actually just Mitch, and we have 3 people who understand where the money is going from, okay? It's just not a popular subject because it's not as clear. I think that when we put this up, it has a great presentation. I think it should be sent to everybody who's on Connect directly. It costs nothing. Just send it, please, this is where we're spending our money this year. I think it should be on Facebook. A lot of people here go on Facebook. And anywhere where we can have the people get a little more interested in what's going on in the municipality. They're paying the money. And like I said, if they generally want to know if they're not costing more money and where's my money being spent. I'm just a person who's transparent. I don't have the answers. I pick some sides. But what I do like to see, it's there. Have a look. If you don't want to have a look, it's there. On the website, that's great to have it there, but can you count the number of people who go to our website every month?
Yeah, there's an opportunity to look at that, yeah.
If you can figure that out, you'll figure out how many people actually go there. If I've asked people, do you read anything on the website? No. I'm asking, do you know that there's going to be this meeting tonight? No. Do you know they're renovating the office? Why they're spending that kind of money? No. They just don't know, because we don't, they don't think it's that important because they think that, it's there. But I think we should be a little bit more, forward. We talk about communication, well, that's so important. And I think you'll get, the populace in Richelieu, I think there's a lot of very smart people here, okay? And they would have some ideas. And I think one of the things when we go out and ask people is actually ask some people who work here, okay, who live here, and say, what would you do in this situation? The building for the renovation, I do hope we are going to try and get a company from Richelieu to do it. Now, whether we have somebody here who can do it, I don't know. But I think we should give an opportunity to some company here, if we're going to spend $2.5 million of taxpayer money, maybe some of it should go back to some of the, people who do the work here. Anyway, I thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to say anything. And again, Mitch, that was a great presentation, okay? It's very clear, very well done. Now, when you put it up on the site, is it going to be like that? You can just flip it through?
You bet.
Great. Thank you very much for listening to me, guys.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Is there anyone else online? No. Council, do you have any questions? Comments?
It was a very good presentation,
Yeah, well done, you guys.
very easy to follow.
Good job, Mr. CEO.
No, my God, this budget is good. It's prudent. It's
Very good.
lots of money invested in our community, and we're still, we're getting some of those.
Do I need to set any dates going forward or no?
No, so just for public's information, whoever that may be, food for thought, we gave the presentation tonight, which is one of the provincial requirements. The next requirement is to give it second or third reading by June 15th. I believe we're gonna have this on the agenda for, Wednesday, May 19th, 18th, or is it 8th, so.
Okay, I mean, that's like, May is, today is what?
It's 2 days.
Pardon me?
You said you were gonna have it on May 18th.
For second and third reading. So basically, it's just moving ahead, so that way, once council gives the second and third reading, we're able to send it off to the province and start, printing out the tax rates.
For the taxes, the budget.
Yes, for the budget,
Okay.
okay?
No, I meant, for, like, if we decide to do the expansion or something like that, we'll spend that kind of money. Before, we used to have a meeting at the, at the arena. Okay, we had other stuff where we had a meeting at the arena, everybody, the presentation was made, one question people got a chance to answer, ask questions, and then once you heard from the presenters, what was it? I think John Creek.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had John Creek speak, Nick spoke about our version of it, and then people asked questions, and at the end of it, you guys had to make your decision, but you made your decision based on listening to the electric, or the people who live here.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we can do that, whether it's feasible now to have something, that says that. Now, would it be nice to have an expansion? Absolutely, it would be nice to do it. Question is this the right time? Right? Is this the right time?
Well, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. CEO, but this is just council ensuring the budget has an allotment for X amount of dollars for this year for the opportunity for an expansion. This isn't us saying we're building this right now. There's a lot more work to be involved. Am I wrong?
There is, but the plan is that we're committing $1 million, not only for architects, but depending on tenders, if the tenders are good, timing is good for construction. This is to give the go-ahead to do it, with the asterisk again being that in 2023, when the project's going to be completed, the full value of construction will be $2.5 million, give or take $2. $1 million now, 1.5 in 2023.
Have you sent out tenders yet?
No, we're still at the phase where, we've got an architect selected.
Yeah.
We're going to start looking at possible schematics to lay the groundwork, and then, based on those, then start drafting up tender documents, to send out to construction companies. You mentioned if we could get somebody locally, yes, but at what cost as well?
I think it should be.
And not only, it may not be the main contractor, but there may be a lot of sub-trades that we would try to invite to participate in the construction of the building.
I agree with you, we should not be overpaying a lot of money, for just saying, so we get it here. It has to be a competitive bid.
It will be competitive.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, no choice.
No, but I mean, to choose choosing a person from this municipality, their bid must be competitive.
Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
I think we had talked about having a public presentation for the office expansion, but I think it was folded into your presentation tonight just to lay the groundwork for the need, the size, the expansion of and I think, Mitch, you did a good job of displaying, from starting in 1981 when the building was built to showing the growth of the community, and I think you did a good job of showing the need for the building, and it's unfortunate we only have one ratepayer to come and see that, but we've struggled with communication with getting people out we thought this would be an enticing thing to get people to come to this, and it's clear that it's not. So,
It may be the way we communicated, not faulting anybody, but how did we communicate this? You know, I know it appeared, how long ago, before time, like some of the stuff we did for the, all the stuff that's going on, I sometimes read it or get it 3 days before, right? Some of the recreation stuff, I get a connect thing that says, in a week, this is starting, right? We should be expanding it, we're gonna get all the people understanding it. The only people that are getting to see what's going on is if you're on Connect, you get it, if you're not on Connect, you don't get nothing.
I agree, and I think that's why we need a communications officer in the worst way, because they'll be able to figure that path out for sure.
It's so simple. It's not a hard task. It is a simple task. There are basic things in communications that are done, and every successful company who communicates like this does the same thing. Okay? There are basics on everything that you do in some of these things, but in communication, right? If we know that, I think it's only about 40%, not even that, of the actual homeowners who are on Connect, right? And I'll give you a perfect example. We put on the site that it is a app, which a lot of people know what that means, but the majority of people think that is for your phone. And they say, I don't want municipalities sending me stuff on my phone, so I don't want to sign up for it. I think it should be very clear. You have options. You do have options on there. And the site is very good once you get into it, you know, the explanation. But it says the biggest word on that page is the word app. When I see that, I look at things, go on, send me stuff and say, well, we want to send it to you. I look at it, and I want to get that stuff on my phone. I'm at work, my phone rings, you know, or my phone buzzes. I go like this. Can this bell tell me there's a meeting? You know, or stuff. We have, for example, I think water. Okay, we send water bills out. Okay, I think about 70% of the people get their water bills by email. They don't get it written, right? Just includes it with the water bill. It's free. And you put it in there, and you're going to get 20-30% more people receiving all these things by just simply doing things like that. It's not hard to do. It's easy. It's just being more, if you want to ask how they do it, for example, Niverville. Okay, you know what they do in Niverville? Every time there's some change, it goes directly to the house. There's no waiting, they send
Mr. Duadon?
Yeah.
As always, council appreciates your pizzazz and feedback for such things financial. I'd also like to remind you that Niverville's sitting at 14 mil rate. We could go to a 14 mil rate and then we'd have lots of money to do everything that you ask for. I think in the interest of time for everybody here, again, appreciate your enthusiasm and your engagement with the community. Appreciate it every time.
I want to say you're right, okay? You're right. I wouldn't say do that. I'm not saying do that. That's wrong, because they're spending a heck of a lot of money and they're charging it on the tax bill. They don't need that, okay? You're right. I wouldn't do that. But there are basic things to start with that you do, right? You start doing that. Now, when I ask people, you're talking to one of the most curious guys in the whole world. I'll go somewhere I don't even know the people, and I say, are you connected to Connect? And they'll say, what's Connect? You know, they just don't know enough about it, okay? We are phone people, okay? There's a lot of people. When I ran for office, I went to every house in this area here, every house. knocked on the door, told them who I was, and one of the questions I asked them was, do you go to the website? No. Some people even told me they don't even have a computer connection, believe it or not, that's some of the older people. They don't even have a computer in their house. So we have situations here where we're using the latest technology, which we should, right? But not everybody has it. Okay, I have a phone, I have all my stuff and everything else, but there's some other people who don't. So we need to find a way. The website is terrific. I think it's a great website. I think the planning on it, what's on there, if we could get people to go there, you know, and find out what's on the website. Facebook, okay? You go on Facebook and look up, RM Reshow on Facebook and see what you get. There's nothing on there. There is on recreation, okay? But if you just go for just the RM Reshow, I don't think you get anything. I couldn't get anything. I got stuff that was 6 months old.
Can I make a comment? Just about this whole, we could talk about this forever, communication is a big open subject. And I know Mr. Ewan, when he first came on, that was a big passion of his. And we had a communications person in here, and when he started Connect, initiative, and it was blitzing, it was going great guns. And I'm gonna blame everything on COVID because that's what it is. That was the reality. 2 years we've been shut down, we haven't been able to blitz and go to door and talk to people, and you just couldn't do that. So we have seen a decline in communication because of that, and it's unfortunate, but our plan is to get it back up and going, and it's on all of our radars, and we appreciate the suggestions. A lot of your suggestions we've discussed, and we are trying to move them forward and implement them. So,
And just to add that, I really feel that people will be as connected as they want to be. Like, I know what you're saying, there's many different avenues, we have social media, some people like getting paper in the mail, some people want a beep on their phone, but, you know, I can just think for myself, when I first moved into this community, I was happy that it was running well, and you know, to me, the mill rate seems very reasonable for what we're receiving here, you know. And I think that for anybody, you know, they can get much more involved. And like, I know what you were saying where, you know, you talk to some people and they don't feel that they really know what's going on. Well, I can tell you that everybody on council here is involved with many boards throughout the community. A lot of volunteers run arenas, social halls, you know, parks. And, you know, what we're doing here with the budget, we discussed that with all the volunteers.
Right.
So I think the more a person's involved in the community, the more they'll know. And but that takes that one individual to want to make that step. I mean, we can put it to them on a silver platter, but they still need to want to get involved.
You're absolutely right. Okay, it's very difficult for them to do. That's why I said, the first question I asked, are my taxes going up? That's all they want to know. Right? That's what they want to know. Like, for example, when people come in here, okay, I used to be in the retail business, right? When people come in here, we want to get more people on Connect. Every person that comes in this place should be asked by the person who comes to talk to them. Very nice. We say, are you connected to Connect? Simple. Everybody who comes in here, you ask them. It's nothing. No work, no nothing. It's easy. Some will be, and some won't be. And if they're not, here's what it does for you. Okay? Connects you to what's going on in this town. And you're right. They may just think that and throw it away.
But I certainly understand your point clear. And I've been to talk to council before about a communications plan, we talked about it back then as well. So,
Yeah.
so thank you for the comment.
And the reason I did that, okay, is I really want to get people thinking about it. Okay? I mean, I'm a retired guy. I don't necessarily want to spend all my time doing that. I think that I like to give back to the community. I've lived here 35 years or something. It's a great place. You're right, reasonable taxes, very nice people, you know. If you come in here, I communicate sometimes with the people in the office here. Very nice, helpful, never had a person who wasn't nice. It's a really nice place to live. All I'm trying to do myself is to try and get the communication. That's just,
and we are too, believe me, we
Yeah, I know.
are too.
And I'll tell you, I'm saying it honestly, there are some smart people here. We once spent $70,000 to find out how to fix up the front street. Okay? We paid in a consultant $70,000 on how to figure out fix up Front Street, Canada, right? I would have gone, I could have told you 3 or 4 people who would have just loved to participate, who are in the business of doing that, that live in Grecian, who would have done it for nothing, probably at the time of dinner or something. But, you know what I mean? There are people here who should be our first, to me, should be the first thoughts. Okay, they live here, the people I was talking about, actually live in San Antonio, they live here. They know how to do this.
I think we're open to 3 road repairs, if that's what you're discussing here.
But anyway, we need to move. I'm gonna stop this right now.
Yeah, yeah.
We need to move. No, I appreciate it, Laurel. So I think, anything else from council? We're good? Do I need to close the meeting? Okay, so then I'll move on to item 3, closing the meeting. Any comments or questions before we finish from council? So now I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's carried 5-0. Councillor Pelcher's in there. Close the meeting at 8:16 PM. Thank you. Good night, everyone. Please stop recording.